Coming out this Thursday on Beyond the Vibe, I'm joined by CHRIS SLADE, best known for his time in one of the biggest bands ever, AC/DC.
Of course, at this point in your career, you'd already worked with Tom Jones, Jimmy Page, Paul Rodgers, David Gilmour. I believe at this point you'd also just finished a tour with Gary Moore. And then obviously you get the call for AC/DC.
Did the audition, no pressure. They sat in front of my bass drum, 10 feet away, on two chairs, Angus and Malcolm, looking straight at me, 10 feet away. Me later that they had auditioned 100 of the world's top drummers.
You had the call from Jimmy Page and David Gilmour on the same day, saying,
yes.
come and be with us.
Yes, I had met Dave before through Mick Ralphs from Bad Company. I was in Mick Ralph's band for a little while, and I got the call from Gilmour. And I said, "Oh, hello, Dave." He said, "I'm putting a band together, and I'd like you to play drums." Oh, wow, that was a bolt out of the blue, So I said to the missus, "Let's go down the pub." Come back to the flat, ring, ring. "Hello, it's Jimmy Page here." "Now, come on, Fred. I know it's you messing me about. I know that." No. It's really Jimmy Page. "Wow. Hello, Jim. How you doing, mate?" Well, me and Paul Rodgers are putting a band together, and we'd like you to play drums. Jim, you won't believe this, but an hour and a half ago, I committed to David Gilmour for 3 months touring. And he said, and I thought, that's the end of that then. He's going to go for somebody else, And he said, silence for a minute. And he said, "That's okay. We'll wait." It's like, take the phone away from head, look at phone, put phone back. And is this for real? Jimmy Page just said, "Wait."
So I'm here with CHRIS SLADE. Thank you very much for joining me. Of course,
It's a pleasure.
Of course, you have the new album Timescape with your band CHRIS SLADE Timeline coming out on July 19th. First off, it feels like quite a diverse album. Did you want this to be, a reflection of a bit of a reflection of your career? Because obviously you've had quite a varied career.
Yes, there's that. It is diverse. And the way I realized that is I thought, oh, wow, it sounds like a Man from Man's Earth Band album from the 70s. In its diversity, that is. Not in its recording techniques or anything like that. But, I'm quite pleased. I was very pleased with Man from Man's Earth Band albums, actually, because the whole band co-produced it, those albums. Although Manfred was the leader, if you like, and everything went through Manfred. With this, everything went through me. Because I'd say to the guys, "Can you come in on Wednesday and play guitar solo?" No, I can't. I've got lessons on, or or I'm doing a gig with so and so, or whatever. So I take full responsibility. And I'm so pleased that I could write so many different things that were good enough to go on the album. Because I didn't know until 2.5 years ago that I could write melodies. Right. I thought that was somebody else's job, I never had the confidence to go ahead. But I tried, and it worked. And I'm now doing like bass lines and string lines and all sorts of harmonies, counter harmonies. That the guys are singing, by the way. The band Timeline is singing and playing. So I'm more than pleased with the way it turned out.
Of course, as mentioned there, it is called the Chris Slade timeline. So, I wanted to take a bit of a look back at your timeline, at your career, because, the more I was looking into it, I was just thinking, I was quite amazed at the amount of people you've worked with and in various different kind of fields over so many years. But So like how did things kind of first begin for you? If we go right back to the beginning, was there a moment for you where you're like, I want to be a musician, I want to be a drummer in particular? Did you have?
Yes, all of that. My older brother, Danny, he was in a marching band, a drummer in a marching band. And he used to bring his drum home to clean. And guess who cleaned it? And there was a lot of brass to polish, it was one of those big brass side drums. And for cleaning it, he taught me some drum licks. And it really went from there. Because if people don't like my drumming, blame my brother Danny, not me. It's not my fault. And I just got the bug, I think. And I seemed to always listen to what the drummer was doing on a record or on radio, which is how most drummers start. They it becomes a thing, and it's like I didn't choose drums. The drums chose me. And that is a fact. A lot of people have said things like that, and it sounds like, oh, yeah, wow, yeah, the drums chose him. Yeah, we all know. But it seems to be true, actually. And I went to a youth employment thing, while I was in school, when I was about 10 or 11 or something, 12. And they said, what do you want to do in life? And I said, I want to be a drummer. Oh, God. Oh, no, stop it. Will you? No, what? That's not a real job. What are you going to do when you're 22? You can't get a job drumming. There's no such thing. It don't exist. And, and then the Beatles happened a few years later. And, the whole British, if you like, what they used to call in America, the British invasion, happened. And I just wanted to play drums all my life. And I haven't so far. But I'm working on it.
Yes. I think a few people would beg to differ, but that kind of first big break for you, obviously playing with Tom Jones for a 7-year period. I imagine that was quite a great experience for you. Obviously you're quite young back then.
I was 16 years old. I had stopped going to school because I didn't want to go anymore. They taught me to think for myself, so I did, and thought, I don't want to go to school anymore. And that's true. And I stopped doing that, and I had a drum kit permanently set up, which I paid for, by the way, not my parents, because I was a delivery boy. And so I was making money in the summers and saving up for a drum kit. So it was permanently set up in my front room. And it was a Premier kit by then. I had bought cheaper things, of course, just to try out drums. But I bought a brand new Premier kit. And I was working in a shoe shop, just like Spinal Tap. I'm sorry to say we haven't got that size. And I'd heard the night before that they had sacked Tom. He was then Tommy Scott and the Senators. He thought Tommy Scott sounded better than Tommy Woodward, which is his real name. So we worked all the working men's clubs and things up and down the Rhondda Valley, full of miners and steel workers, And back then, Pontypridd and the Rhondda Valley was quite a rough place because they were miners and steel workers, They're not going to take anything from anybody, And they like what they like, and they don't like anything else. And Tom was a fantastic, as he is now, a fantastic singer. So we would be doing rock and roll stuff like Jerry Lee and Little Richard, and he actually sung Little Richard, as only he could. And then he'd throw in a ballad, like I Believe or something, And then after a couple of years of that, Gordon Mills, the manager-songwriter, saw us and said, "Well, you've got to come to London." And he paid for a flat for us, for the band, which included Tom at first. And it was a grotty little place. We used to call it the Black Hole of Calcutta. But, it was home. And we sort of went out there. And then when we were in the Rhondda, we were making quite good money. Like, I was making like 40 quid a week. My father was making 20 quid a week working in a factory. Another reason to stop going to school. So then we went to London and starved because we couldn't get any work. Tom had been told when he was 22 years old that he was too old to make it.
Wow.
He was 22. Because people like Herman's Hermits will come up in the charts, and they were in their teens, and Tom was too old at 22, and of course he liked rock and roll, and but we used to eat every other day because we couldn't afford to eat every day. That's the truth.
Wow.
I'll get the strings out in a minute. So that went on for a little while. Oh, and then our first professional, you're supposed to get paid if you're a professional, gig was supporting the Rolling Stones.
Wow.
In Oxford Street, London, in a place called Tiles. And it was, we supported the Stones. And I was a big fan of the Stones, of course, as I was of the Beatles. Tom, probably not so much, but I was, because I was current, hip and trendy, man. So we did that gig with the Stones. That was my first professional, as I say, supposed to get paid, which I didn't. First professional gig, but I did have somewhere to live and eat now and again, which is quite important, I'm told. So that went on for a few years, and then Tom, a little while after, Tommy Scott Woodward changed his name to Tom Jones. And, and the rest is history. And then I changed my name from Chris Rees, and we all took our middle names to Chris Slade. That's my middle name. And Vernon, the bass player, became Vernon Mills because his middle name was Mills. So we all took our middle names. And 1964 or so, we did a demo at Regent Sound in Denmark Street in London for a song that Gordon Mills had written called It's Not Unusual.
Yeah.
And at the end of that session, and it was very quick and like in and out, 30 minutes I think it took, we knew that that was a hit record. And Tom had a huge argument with Gordon in public, in the pub, across the road, Tottenham Court Road. And he said, if I can't have that record, I'm giving up. I'm going back to Wales. He was probably 23 at the time. And Gordon was saying, well, you can't have it because it's written for Sandy Shaw, who was a big singer, British singer at the time. And we didn't know this at that time, but Sandy had heard it and said, it's not my song, it belongs to the guy who's singing it on the demo, which was Tom. And we all knew that it was a number one record. I've done other records that have been number one, and I've never known, like I knew then, that It's Not Unusual was going to be a massive hit. It was, we knew it from the start when we heard it played back to us. So, I've never known that, say, Thunderstruck was going to be a huge hit, or that Blinded by the Light was going to be the huge hit. Didn't have a clue. It's Not Unusual, knew where it was going to go.
Speaking of that, of course, throughout the 70s, you were in Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Obviously, we just mentioned that big hit, Blinded by the Light. Obviously, it was written by Bruce Springsteen.
Yep.
What was it about that song that drew you guys to that? And, obviously, your version is quite different from
yes,
Springsteen's.
Absolutely. Manfred, loves the writing of Dylan and Springsteen. We were given, myself and Manfred were given copies of Greetings from Asbury Park when it first came out, and it had bombed. Nobody bought it. And a journalist gave us this. And Manfred, who took it home, played it. I was telling everybody in Britain, journalists, anybody who would listen, you've got to listen to this guy, Bruce Springsteen. He's fantastic. And he was. We saw him live also, like a 3-hour show or something. And, him and the E Street Band were fantastic. And I told everybody about this. And that Manfred actually took the album, and he took Blinded by the Light, because Bruce does it like a shuffle type thing. It's almost a throwaway. Manfred obviously saw something else in it. He'd been doing that with Bob Dylan in the 60s with Manfred Mann, the pop band. But this was Manfred Mann's Earth Band, which was like a progressive band. But became a progressive band. We couldn't get arrested first with Manfred's name because everybody thought it was going to be the pop band, who, in Manfred's words, were terrible on stage. And he said that. He used to carry applause around on a tape machine and press the button at the end of a song. I'm not kidding. He told us that too. So his version, he played it to us, his clink, clink, clink piano version of it. And we thought it was the band, Earth Band, thought it was fantastic. And so but we had no idea how fantastic, but we recorded it. It was a joint effort, all of Earth Band doing the mixing and doing, saying about production and what, our suggestions. Everything went through Manfred, and they liked it or not. And I said to him, what'll go good in the middle of this is chopsticks. This is documented by Manfred himself. Chopsticks in the middle of that, clang, 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 dan, 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 the thing that everybody tries to play when they see a keyboard. And, he did. And he thought the idea was quite avant-garde, actually. We all put in ideas for that and mixed it. We used to stand at a mixer on every track, and we all had like 2 or 3 faders, and we used to move them. You had to put a chalk mark where your volume was, because there was no automated mixers like they've got today. They hadn't been invented yet. This was a good desk that we had. Manfred owned it, actually. It was his recording studio. And, it's Earth Band was what can I say? A conglomerate. We were all equal within the band, except Manfred was more equal. We all tried to do the best. And Blinded by the Light was the outcome. And it was number 1 all over the world. I'm sure, it's never been said, but I'm sure it propelled Springsteen on his way. I met the drummer, Max Weinberg, drummer of the E Street Band, years later. He came to see The Firm play with Jimmy Page. And we were backstage together. And I said, oh, by the way, Max, I was the drummer on Blinded by the Light. And he said, wow, man, that record kept us going for a few years.
Wow.
So, it really was helping Springsteen and the E Street Band in their career. But, apart from the fact that Bruce himself is, a tremendous writer and a tremendous performer, nothing like a kick of publicity. Name underneath the worldwide hit, or B. Springsteen, multi-million selling. Greetings from Asbury Park, which bombed when it first came out, is now, of course, a multi-million selling album with Blinded by the Light on it, his version of it. So Manfred did him a great favor there, I think, personally.
I think so.
But he's a tremendous writer and performer.
Now, reading through everything, online and stuff, there's always this kind of thing that comes through. I don't know if it's true, but it could be. Is it true that you had the calls from Jimmy Page and David Gilmour on the same day, saying,
yes,
come and be with us?
Yes. I had met Dave before through Mick Ralphs from Bad Company. I was in Mick Ralph's band for a little while, and I got the call from Gilmour, and I said, oh, hello, Dave. He said, I'm putting a band together, and I'd like you to play drums. Oh, wow. That was a bolt out of the blue, And this is about midday. And I said, wow, but Mick, I'm sort of committed to Mick. And he said, oh, that's okay, Mick's doing it too. So I went, oh, fantastic. So how long? 3 months. All right. Starts in a few weeks, and we rehearse and everything. And okay, thanks. That's amazing, Mr. Gilmour, sir. So he's a great guy, Dave. Great guy. And so I said to the missus, let's go down the pub. And so went down the pub, had lunch along with the food bevies, come back to the flat, ring, ring. Hello, it's Jimmy Page here. Now, come on, Fred. I know it's you messing me about. I know that. No. It's really Jimmy Page. Wow. Hello, Jim. How you doing, mate? Well, me and Paul Rodgers are putting a band together, and we'd like you to play drums. This is an hour and a half later, after Gilmore. And I said exactly that to Pagey. I said, Jim, you won't believe this, but hour and a half ago, I committed to David Gilmour for 3 months touring. And he said, and I thought, well, that's the end of that then. He's going to go for somebody else, you know. And he said, silence for a minute. And he said, that's okay. We'll wait.
Wow.
It's like, take the phone away from head, look at phone, put phone back. And is this for real? Jimmy Page just said, wait. And he said, just let us know where you are and what you're doing and all that stuff. I said, of course I will. So that's how that was left. Back down the pub, of course.
Got to. Of course, speaking of the firm, you've got these two iconic musicians in Jimmy Page and Paul Rodgers. What was it like kind of recording and working with them? Obviously there's two big stars there. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, to me, people are people. It doesn't matter if you're David Gilmour or Paul Rodgers or Jimmy Page. Don't get me wrong. I understand how iconic those people are and how good they are at their chosen thing, guitar or voice or whatever. Paul has one of the greatest blues voices ever. But people are people. And it's like, unless it's unreasonable, which they never were, a request, of some kind, it's valid and they are paying the money. So to me, it's a professional thing to do your best work, best you can possibly manage, and don't bitch about things. So, and if everybody keeps that in mind, any musicians who are watching, and you got to get on with people. Otherwise, you don't work. As simple as that. It's very simple. You go back on the dole, mate. If you don't, do as you're asked, as best as possible, at every time. And, Tony Franklin was a tremendous bass player, still is a tremendous bass player, the fretless monster. And, it was a great band. And nobody ever pulled any ego tricks. I never saw Pagey, unless it was professional, like about, schedule or something. I never saw him pull any sort of funny business in any way. And he was a really nice guy. So was Paul. And, we got on well together. And we were together for like 2 years as the firm. The journalists had a field day with the name The Firm. They said, they're obviously in it for the money, as if Jimmy Page needed the money. And the second album we did was called Mean Business. They were all over that as well. Oh, look, they're obviously in it for the business. But I said to Paul at the time, I said, that's a great name. Because it was multifaceted. It can mean we mean business, or it can mean it's a mean business. And I'm sure there's more there somewhere, which it is, by the way. It is a mean business. People say to me, I want to be a drummer. What should I do? I say, don't be a drummer. Because it's, you got to be tougher than shit and twice as smelly. And the pecking order is disgusting with drummers. We got a gig next Wednesday. Oh, have we, guys? You didn't tell me. And that's true. It happens all the time. You ask drummers, any drummers at any level, the pecking order for drummers is 0. Whereas lead singer or lead guitarist is number 1, always number 1, whether you're either of those things. But drummers, yeah, you know. I don't know if you heard the Trogs tapes. You've understand those.
Of course, you know, at this point in your career, you'd already worked with Tom Jones, Jimmy Page, Paul Rodgers, David Gilmour. I believe at this point you'd also just finished a tour with Gary Moore. And then obviously you get the call for AC/DC. I mean, you must be riding high at this point. How does that happen? For starters, how does that call come about?
I was working with Gary Moore, who had the same management as AC/DC, a guy called Stuart Young, no relation to Angus Young and Malcolm Young. And he was the manager, of Gary Moore and AC/DC. So I got through that. I got the chance. Oh, and Malcolm came to see a Gary Moore gig. I think it was at the NEC, if I remember correctly. And I didn't know who he was. Bob Daisley, the bass player with Gary, just said to me, "This is Mal." Oh, hello, Mal. He didn't say, "This is Mal from AC/DC." He just said, "This is Mal." Oh, okay, mate. We got on really, really well. I didn't know he was AC/DC. I had no idea. But, you know, he was funny. I was funny. We just hit it off immediately. But that gave me the chance to audition for AC/DC. I'd never seen many pictures of AC/DC, so I didn't know what they looked like or any of that. And I generally didn't know who Mal was. So got me a chance to audition. They told me later that they had auditioned 100 of the world's top drummers.
Wow.
Both in America and everywhere else, Britain especially. And they were top guys, and they were in top bands, and they would phone and say, "Look, don't tell my band, whatever you do. I'd really like a chance to try out with you guys," because they all wanted to be in AC/DC. And that's a fact. And I was told, "You got a chance for an audition." I went, "Oh, great. Yeah, I'm all up for that with any band, you know." So did the audition, no pressure. They sat in front of my bass drum, 10 feet away on 2 chairs, Angus and Malcolm, looking straight at me 10 feet away.
Wow.
And Cliff was over in the corner playing bass, and Brian was over in the other corner singing. And, okay, Back in Black. All right. You count in. Looking at me. No pressure. So you got to get the tempo right for a start. And went into that. And then it was, I can't remember what the songs were after that. But I had to learn a new song that nobody had ever heard before, that Angus and Mal had written. And it was called Rock Your Heart Out. And I had to learn that in about 20 minutes. And it's a difficult, it's nothing like you usually hear from AC/DC. And it's on the razor's edge, Rock Your Heart Out. And it's great because it's a syncopated bass drum, all offbeat bass drum things, which is unusual for AC/DC especially. It's usually 4 to the floor, So I love that track. And of course, Thunderstruck. We did Thunderstruck. And first of all, we did it in Ireland to start with. And the producers didn't work out. And after a few weeks, we moved to Vancouver, Canada, to Little Mountain Studios. And started doing the tracks again there. Most of the things were already demoed by Angus and Mal, because they both play drums.
Right.
And so most of it was demoed. There were some that weren't, and we worked them up in the studio, but most of it was demoed, and that's what they do. They demo everything. They both got recording studios in their houses, and it's a job done. You gotta do your best to do what they, or keep the feel of their demos, if you like, which are pretty good, to say the least.
When you first heard that Thunderstruck demo, did you feel, like this is going to be perhaps one of the biggest ones on this record? Did it feel like?
Had no idea. There was no boom booms on it, thunder. None of that to start with. Bruce Fairbairn, the producer, came up to me and said, can you go, I know you're doing it, but can you go heavier? Boom, boom, every time thunder comes up. I said, yeah, of course I can. And it was like, he seemed to be surprised by that. I don't know why. To me, that was a walk in the park. But to go boom, boom, and wait for a bar and go boom, boom, it's nothing to do that. And he wanted it done a lot of times because he wanted the biggest possible sound he could get. So that was put on the record, and it did change it, of course. You can imagine Thunderstruck without thunder.
Yeah.
And we all sang on na 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 and thunder, and we recorded it many times. And there was a time when there was about 30 people doing that in the carport of Little Mountain Studios, with mics up and crew, anybody who's in the studio singing on it, because he wanted as big. Bruce wanted as big as possible, and it was great there, because my son used to live in Vancouver as well, my eldest son. That was good.
A gig that I think has always been such an iconic show, Donington 91. I remember when I was growing up, it was one of those kind of early ones that I'd watch on VHS, and you just feel like, wow, like what a show. It's always kind of followed AC/DC as one of those big ones. What was that kind of that day and that experience like for you personally?
Donington?
Yeah, Donington 91.
Yeah, it was great. But to me, it's another day at the office. You have to have that attitude, otherwise you're lost. If you start thinking, there's 150,000 people out there, you'll fall apart. You've got to be professional under all circumstances. It's the same, the last time I was with AC/DC, 15-16, Rock or Bust tour. It was 80,000 people every night. And you can't think, there's 80,000 people out there. And I remember my first show with them that time at 2015 with AC/DC was the Grammys.
Right.
And I said to the manager, well, how many people roughly are going to be watching this live? He said, about 800 million. I went, what? He said, no, it's okay. It's only 80 million. And I thought, that's much better. No, it's got to be another day at the office when you play, because you have to do your job. And that's what I've always done. That's how I always will do. No matter whether there's 8 people in the audience or 800 million. You just got to do your job. If it was somebody who'd never been a professional drummer before did it, they would completely freeze. And I've seen it happen with different musicians, not just drummers, anybody. If you're not used to that environment, you've had it.
No, I agree. Did you feel with Donington 91 that, you know, this has gone particularly well? Obviously, it was being filmed, and you know, it's classed as one of those iconic live shows now. Did it feel special in that moment?
No, another day at the office. Honestly, for me, I like watching it now.
Yeah.
I never watch it myself. If I go to a party or something, people always play it. Oh, look, you got to. Yeah. I think I've seen it, guys, you know. But they watch it anyway, you know. And I'm twiddling my thumbs having a beer. Yeah, I've said, oh, I like that bit. Yeah, I like that bit. Yeah. How about that? How about that? How about? Yes, I've seen it. Yes. You know, I did a live tour for 3 to 5 years with them, you know. And I used to see that every night, you know. And, you know, the horns that, the red horns that people bought. Huh?
Yeah.
Dick, the drum tech, another Welshman, said, I looked out and said, wow, the horns. Everybody's wearing horns. He said, do you know how to work out how many horns are out there? I said, no. He said, you count them one by one, and then you divide by 2.
Obviously, you've mentioned there, you know, your return to AC/DC in 2015. You know, obviously around that period of time, Axl Rose had to come in because obviously Brian was having some problems. But what was kind of the feeling around having Axl in? Because obviously AC/DC hadn't had a different singer for decades at that point. Did it feel a bit strange at first, or did he just come straight in and feel right?
It felt all right from the off. I'd heard all the horror stories about Axl. Yes. And he showed up. I didn't even know. They didn't tell the drummer that Axl Rose was coming in the next day. They didn't bother to tell the drummer, you know. So it's back to the pecking order again. I said, Axl Rose? Yeah, because I only ever heard his Guns N' Roses voice, you know. I didn't know he had that voice. Yeah. And I shook his hand, and I can usually tell with people when I shake their hand how they are and if I like them or not. I've been doing it all my life. I can usually tell. And I thought, hey, this guy's all right. And then he started singing, and he was like, Jesus Christ, I didn't know he could sing like that. Now, you know, he's not Brian Johnson. No. I'm not saying Axl was better than Brian or Brian is better than Axl.
Just different.
People take that the wrong way.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, Slade's saying Axl was much better than us. Not that at all. Music is not a competition.
No.
You can say, I like this guy better than that guy, whether it's guitar, bass, singing, anything. That is a subjective opinion, and it's your opinion. So it's valid. But you can't say this guy is better than this guy and think it's God sent, that your opinion is the real opinion, the right opinion, because it doesn't exist. You know, objectively, you can look at it, you know, you can look at any guitarist, any musician, singer, and you can go, I prefer his playing. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But to say that this guy is better than this guy is completely wrong. You can say it, but what you mean is, I like this person. I like this person better than this person doing that job. You cannot say, oh, obviously he's better than him on whatever instrument. That's not being objective. That's being subjective. So, and as I said, music is not a competition. It's a blending of people all doing their job. And if they do it well, you like it. So the Axl thing, he was never late. He was always telling stories and jokes. Some people would find that hard to, Axl Rose tell a joke. He was always full of them and stories. And he asked Angus if we could play If You Want Blood and Touch Too Much.
Yeah.
Because he was a huge fan of Bon and that era, and he had a great deal of respect for Angus and Malcolm, and for everybody. So he came in, did a fantastic professional job. He used to warm up 2 hours every night before show, and warm down for 1 hour after the show. And I know because I was in the room next to him. Axel's off again. Must be nearly time to go. Yeah, but that's true. He took it very seriously. He had his vocal coach with him on the road.
Wow.
He did it very seriously. And he said on stage when he was back with Guns N' Roses years later, he said on stage, I was taken to boot camp with AC/DC. They told me if I screw up, I get the boot. And that's probably true as well.
It most likely is. A question I always like to finish on that I ask every guest. It's a bit of a hypothetical question. And you've obviously worked with many amazing people over the years, but if you could tour with one musician from the past and one from the present, who would they be? Maybe somebody that you've not got to work with before until this point.
Well, I did jam with this guy on bass, Jaco Pastorius. Weather Report is my favorite band. And the present day guy would be a guitarist you might not have heard of, Guthrie Govan.
Right.
Who is now considered to be one of the top 3 in the world. When I started talking about Guthrie, and I was working with him in Asia, in the band Asia. We were both there for at least 5 years. And Guthrie is probably the best ever guitarist of all time.
Wow.
And he gave, in the beginning, he gave lessons to James Colford, who is guitarist in Timeline. And Guthrie is still a friend today. He's not David Gilmour. He's not Jimmy Page. He's not Angus Young. He is Guthrie Govan. And he really, honestly, is considered one of the best guitarists in the world by other guitarists. Nobody's ever heard of him, public-wise, or very few, put it that way. His band is called the Aristocats, I think. He's English.
Yeah.
Well, Govan, I think that comes from Scotland, but and he's a very nice guy. He's a great guitarist, and he has no ego whatsoever. Quite an amazing mixture.
Is there any musicians perhaps from your childhood that you kind of looked up to as kind of an inspiration? I know
Buddy
a lot.
Rich.
Right.
And I'm not the only one, dozens of drummers of my sort of generation. Buddy Rich was the man. I once sat 6 foot from his drum kit at Ronnie Scott's in London. And that was an amazing education. I can't play like he can play, but I could see what he was doing. He was there for like a few days, and I was there every night. And watching his hands and feet, and it really was an education. So he was the drummer I aspired to when I was young. Not trying to be like him, because nobody could. Not even Neil Peart. But he was another one that was a Buddy Rich fan. I met him. I got his autograph. And there's another drummer from that era, like a pop drummer, if you like. It was Sandy Nelson, who did Let There Be Drums. And everybody, again, like Cozy Powell, Ringo Starr, everybody of that generation, Let There Be Drums was just iconic. And that set a lot of people off on the road to drumming. The Fools!
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Chris. Of course, for those out there that want to grab a copy of the Chris Slade Timeline, the new album Timescape, you can via the link in the description below. Before we leave, if you could pick a song off the new Timescape album, like your favorite, do you have one? Is there one for fans?
Yes, I think I do. Time Flies.
Okay.
Because that started with just tinkling on a piano, da 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 da, and I thought, oh, that could be an idea. And I was so surprised in the last 2.5 years that I could write things like that and get inspiration from mid-air, if you like. They just sort of drop in out of nowhere. You know, you're having a shower and it goes, oh, that's a good idea. I must remember that. And so you get a recorder and go la 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 la, and that becomes a song, believe it or not. And I'm really surprised by that process because it never happened before, to my knowledge, anyway. To me, you know, I wrote lyrics from the 70s onwards, but never thought I could, never aspired to writing melodies. So, please is not the word. Cheshire Cat is closer to, the way I feel about that. No matter what people think of it, and we've had some very, very positive comments from a lot of people, not just friends, so far. And it's not even out yet. So, yourself included. So, I'm very pleased about that. I just hope that because we never stopped working, Timeline never stopped working. Last Saturday, we were in Lyon, in France.
Right.
And in 2 weeks' time, we go to Italy. And we're in Germany after that. We were in Poland like 3 months ago. Chechnya before that. And it always goes down an absolute storm. The band is amazing, and I'm saying that I'm in the band. The guys are just fantastic. And the audience, after we've started, the audience are really in awe of what the band do, because they're a fantastic band. And we play half AC/DC and half stuff like Asia, Manfred Mann's Earth Band, of course, Uriah Heep, just like the new Timescape album. And we play for 2 hours every night, as long as there's a time there. And anything shorter, we feel shortchanged, because the set list that I work is meant to build, is meant to go somewhere, and means something. Every song means something. So it's a great experience. And I'm never afraid of another band on the bill or something, because we're so different to them that it goes without saying that, we're, James and Mike, the keyboard player and the guitarist, have worked together since they were 11 years old, and they're 35 now. You know, so they're a very tight unit. And Stevie G is playing bass and singing the sort of Uriah Heep stuff, Earth Band stuff, and Bun Davis is singing the AC/DC stuff. And the second CD in Timescape is an indication of how he does AC/DC. He's also singing on the originals on Sundance, using his ordinary voice, shall I say, and on Back with a Vengeance also. So it's a tight unit. We always drive in a van, the old-fashioned way. And that's why we work in Europe. You know, we always drive there. We don't fly. We used to fly, but we couldn't use our own equipment. And I want to use the Rock and Bust drum kit as well. And you can't fly that too easily. So, you know, I'm just really happy about the reception this album has had. And that's all I can say about it.
No, thank you very much for your time, Chris.
Thank you.
It's been great speaking with you. Obviously, for those out there that want to grab the Timescape album, you can via the link in the description below. And thank you so much for your time.